1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, this is our town. Much the same and as rich in nature's gifts as it was 100 years ago. Add to this a wealth of material accomplishments through those years, and you have Eau Claire today.
The city of Eau Claire has come a long way from the days of a logging town. We'll take a look at what may lie ahead for the city, as well as what could be done differently.
We will also look ahead to the preseason opener of the Green Bay Packers tonight at Lambeau Field.
I write about being up in Rusk County, Wisconsin, which is adjacent to the county I grew up in, and it's a poverty-stricken place and a lot of logging and roughnecks, and yet I have this friend named Barry who's a dancer, who's, you know, flamboyantly over the top and wears muumuus and gold lame, and that's just when he's shopping at the Bruce IGA, you know, and he's in the middle of nowhere up there teaching modern dance. Why shouldn't art be happening here?
When I go down to Chicago, inevitably, the question always comes up, how is it that a school can have 300 people in a tiny town in Wisconsin, and there can be 200 in the music program? How is that possible?
Well, watch how we can do just that.
I still remember the kids sitting there on the edge of the stage with their feet dangling off. Justin Vernon was among that group. And I said, guys, I know we spent a lot of time working on Ellington stuff, but I just heard about this thing called the Essential Ellington. That sounds pretty cool, and I described it to them. It was Wynton Marsalis's brainchild, sort of known as the Super Bowl of jazz festivals. I said, you know, we have to work really hard, and there's no guarantee that we would make it, of course. A lot of these kids had never been to New York. Some of them had never been on a plane before. And so I said, all right, everybody shut your eyes, put down your head. So I don't want people to be feeling pressure from each other. But how many people would like to do this? So they all did this and shut their eyes. And every single hand went up. And I said, we're going to do this together. And it's not going to be easy. We're going to have to work at this. And we might be surprised. There might be some really cool things that happen. And we made it. The community of Eau Claire really jumped in behind us and donated $25,000 for us to be able to go. The kids didn't have to pay anything. And we got the title, one of America's best jazz bands, and Wynton Marsalis played with us in front of all these New Yorkers in Alice Tully Hall in Lincoln Center. All of a sudden, Wynton says, and by the way, we've got a band from Eau Claire? Eau Claire. The community is so behind them that they got their way completely paid for by those people in that community. So let's give it up for the $25,000 band from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So it was pretty cool. A decade later, we made it 2 years in a row. Whoa, we just hit a new level. But I was worried that the community wasn't going to buy into the, hey, this is a chance of a lifetime for these students because we just made it the year before. And so what are we going to do?
And the Grammy goes to
Bonnie Bear!
Justin Vernon, who was in the first band in 1999 and was making it big time on the music scene. So I called him up. Would you be willing to come and do a concert with Eau Claire Memorial as a fundraiser for us? And he said, sure. He goes, but one thing though, no Bon Iver tunes. And that's how he said it. He mispronounces his own stage name on purpose. I'm like, now Justin, we have to do some Bon Iver tunes because if we don't, they will throw tomatoes at me. He decided that they were also going to put it on iTunes under the adult alternative, I guess, music is what it was called, where it stayed in the #1 position for at least a couple of months, if not longer. And they gave us all the proceeds from all the iTunes sales for 6 months. He helped basically send the band out single-handedly to New York City.
Man, that's awesome.
And then we had heard that there were going to be no cuts at all in staffing, except for there was in music. And my principal actually has tears in his eyes when he's telling me, Bruce, you're going to be moved. And I'm like, just like that? And he said, I'm sorry, it's been decided.
The community stagnates without the impulse of the individual. The impulse dies without the interest of the community. Minnesota spends more than $7, and apparently they are poised to possibly boost that to $11 in the fund that they use to support arts and culture in the state.
We're down to 17 cents.
17 cents per capita spent, and we think that that's 48th in the country right now, right next to a state that is number one with like a huge bullet. They are head and shoulders above everyone else. It's been a losing battle for many years.
We'll be back with more of Our Town Eau Claire after this.
Let's grow, wait as we speak. Us both
If you look at geographic locations that have had these moments, whether it's Memphis, Muscle Shoals, Seattle,
New Orleans, Austin, and Nashville are doing really well. If you're a smaller city, it doesn't mean you can't have a really catalytic music scene. And almost invariably, when you go to all ages underground sort of DIY clubs, you can almost guarantee that in 5 years, that neighborhood's going to be unaffordable. And it's just the way cities develop. So in the case of Omaha, you had the Saddle Creek scene, a group of kids, some were in high school, some were in college. They rallied around this cassette by Conor Oberst, who then became Bright Eyes, and sold like 100 copies. And it just kept getting bigger. Other bands like Cursive, The Good Life, Azure Ray, The Faint, Robert Kiley started to get bigger. They were all friends. They got to the point where they were like, look, we want to focus on Omaha. We don't necessarily want to move either, because they're highly skilled, creative, and they were going to drive the economy forward, and they were attracting other people to move there. There was an old Union Pacific rail yard in downtown Omaha. The city wanted redevelopment. The people from Saddle Creek built what became an anchor for redevelopment, and it was an immediate hit. This was like 2007. By 2008, it was already voted best club in the nation by Vanity Fair. And they since have had an estimated $100 million redevelopment money come in for projects surrounding it. So that was basically because they made a cassette tape in someone's basement. Of course, when you're doing a DIY punk shows, anywhere is a venue. Flint was a husk of the city, not much left. There was an idea to form an all-ages DIY venue called Flint Local 432. And then they decided, let's move this downtown because it's pretty cheap and no one's going to bother us. Effectively, they bought a building for $500 down. The entire price of the building, I think, was $50,000. So they opened this venue, and it's all volunteer. It becomes a very solid, well-run, respectable venue that's bringing in bands like Black Flag and things like that across the country. It's now an even more sophisticated nonprofit that hosts a full slate of music shows, but also poetry readings, theater, classes in entrepreneurism, all because of all ages DIY punk rock shows.
Tantalizing aroma of Italian sliced pizza fill the parking lots. And again, I wish you would have saved some for me.
Now, if you'll allow me, I have some work to do.
In any economic cluster like a Silicon Valley, you have companies that start needing inputs. So in the case of a band, you need t-shirts, you need to make videos. Well, we had all these really skilled kids that were producing products that were on the level of something you'd get at a major label or something you'd see internationally. And so they started forming companies to do this. And it was a way to develop their portfolio, but then it became their job.
I mean, the music scene is crucial to us because that's where our passion started. We were really young. I mean, we were 19 when we started it. It's hard to take any 19-year-old seriously. And so after we started printing for Boney Bear, some bigger accounts, people started trusting us and actually like looking to us to like help them creatively.
Music scenes, they catalyze economic development. They're also really good at catalyzing community development and facilitating a visceral love for cities. And you'll find a lot of people in city politics now once had a stake in the music scene. It's a great way to learn your city, to learn the people that run the city.
The community of Eau Claire has always shown support ever since I was 16 at the Stones Throw when they were doing underage shows. A huge thing for me was seeing Justin Vernon and that whole troupe of college-age kids playing music to people and realizing, oh, you can actually do something in rural Wisconsin and people care. And that's what made me want to pick up a guitar and do it, which led me into realizing that I was better at talking on the phone than
The communication lines were open in Eau Claire, and man, that is half the battle for developing a music scene that is integrated within the city on several different levels.
These things that are keeping residents here and even attracting new ones.
Thank you, Selena, for that report.
But if you come riding on through.
There's a bar in town called The Joint. In one corner was where all the English majors and the English professors would hang out. They would talk about writing and literature and poetry. They'd also talk about the Packers, and they were also drywall hangers, and they were masons. You know, there were working class people that I related to. That was the first time where I saw this intersection of that blue collar work ethic and art, and that they didn't have to occupy separate worlds. And there was no wall. I could just wander in and join the conversation. And that if you want to make music, you find people who are making music.
I will wait in the pines till the sweet edge of time.
I remember I started writing songs just because I learned some guitar chords, and I was talking to a buddy and I said, I'd like to record, but I don't know how to do that. And he said, well, that guy over there, he's got a Mac and he needs money. He could do it. And so I hired this kid to just record my first album. And it was a skinny little guy named Justin.
Ever since I heard the howling wind, I didn't need to go where a Bible went.
The first year we did the Eau Claire Festival.
But then you know your gift seemed heaven sent.
The night that Justin played it, I went out and I did my little intro thing.
If you hold yourself still and silent now, you can feel that river running behind you. Running through the night, running through all time.
Just lead me to a caller, Dad, that's the thing.
And then I went backstage and I found my wife, and we just walked out into the crowd, and I went way in the back and laid down on the ground and just looked up at the stars and listened while Justin, this kid that I met when he was in his basement and just needed some money to do my dumb album. And I just looked at the stars and let that all wash over me, and I just told my wife, I said, I can't believe we got this goofy, wonderful life.
Heavenly Father, it's definitely lava, or you don't carry other names.
Justin Vernon, this is one of the baddest white boys on the planet, one of the musicians I respect the most. And he's here with us tonight.
Everybody would like to say, well, I'm the person who kind of, gave him this bit of advice or gave him this guitar or this, that. Well, when he emerged from the mythical woods with Pharema forever ago, he gave me an early copy of it and said, tell me what you think. I've been working really hard on this. And it was this amazing new sound. He went in a completely different direction. And so I told him that. I said, I think you're doing something important. I think you're making a difficult but critical move into a new sound. And then I'm the guy that said, but singing in falsetto, I think that's a bad idea. So for the record, I'm that trusted friend. And thank goodness he ignored me.
When you have a platform that can show all these good things happening, all these ideas, it tends to kind of pollinate the thinking of other people, and they realize that there are things that they can do as well. It just creates this resonating effect throughout a community that starts to create a really positive change and a positive vibe. It's not through Justin Vernon that happens. Justin reflects the inspired people of the community.
It just feels really good to be premier of our little culture here. And a great way to do that is with art and experience and give people a reason to hoot and holler.
You have up-and-coming younger people who are making scenes happen here in living rooms and basements.
Like, I'd never witnessed local music on a level that it is here. I've drunkenly danced so many times to songs I love, it's ridiculous.
All these young kids, it just boggles my mind, the talent. So you can see another wave just on the horizon coming up. I just sit back and scratch my chin and go, this is just wonderful.
Almost 5 years ago now, we had this crazy idea that we could take this site and build a beautiful facility for our students that was so desperately needed, and then work with our community to build an art center that matched the talent that was in this community. Finally, today, we are here to break ground.
Through these projects actually coming to fruition and opening up and seeing them busy with people, you start proving people wrong through action.
And since the Confluence season opened just last September, we've seen more than $112.5 million in new construction, 55,000 unique guests, that has equaled $4.6 million in direct economic impact to the region.
Talking to police officers that used to work this part of town 20 years ago, they said like 80 to 85% of the crime happened where RCU and JAMP have their buildings right now. For 20 years, downtown was really not quite a ghost town, but really close. And I think the educational system in Eau Claire has been a huge catalyst to the actual change that has eventually happened in Eau Claire.
Keeping our youngsters occupied in constructive and useful activities is a welcome and full-time job for everyone in Eau Claire. For we all know that our town's future is in the hands of the generation now growing up.
Things have always changed. And there are a lot of young, energetic, beautiful people coming up behind me. And maybe now my job is to open doors. It doesn't mean give it up my thing. I got my thing. I'll work on it. But look at all these wonderful things that are happening.
And so we have endeavored to show you our town. Each change, large or small, plays an integral part in the molding of Eau Claire for tomorrow's citizens. For all our efforts today will have been without purpose or cause if they should fail.
The wealthiest person is pauper at times, but compared to the man with a satisfied mind, when my life is over and my time has run.